Stop what you're doing and look at your current iPhone. It's boring, it's flat, and frankly, it's safe. But if the latest report from analyst Jeff Poo is right, Apple is about to take that safe design, snap it in half, and inject it with a material they have been hoarding in a secret vault since 2008. We are talking about the iPhone Fold, and for the first time, the specs actually sound different. We have got a new liquid metal hinge that defies physics, a camera change that will make OG Android fans scream, and a price tag that will absolutely require a credit check. Let's get into it. Listen, we have been hearing iPhone Fold next year every year since the dinosaurs roamed the earth, or at least since the Galaxy Fold 1 started snapping hinges. But this time is different because the supply chain noise is getting louder and way more specific. This isn't just Apple is testing screens, this is we are building the factory line. If you are the type of person who walks into an Apple store or Best Buy every September ready to drop a grand, this changes your entire game plan for 2026. For my friends in the US, this is the moment you decide if you are locked into a carrier contract for 36 months or if you're brave enough to buy unlocked. Because if this thing lands in September alongside the iPhone 18 Pro, your current trade-in value is about to get complicated. And for everyone in the UK and Europe, once you add VAT to what I'm about to tell you, you might need to sell a kidney. This device is positioned to grab a massive chunk of the market. Jeff Pugh says 2% of the entire smartphone market, which sounds small until you realize that's millions of units in a shrinking economy. Let's talk about the metal. The report claims Apple is finally using liquid metal for the hinge. Now, Apple bought the rights to this tech back in 2010, literally 16 years ago, and sat on it like a dragon guarding gold. It's an amorphous alloy that offers insane strength and fatigue resistance, meaning you can fold this thing 100,000 times and it won't get that saggy, sad feeling you get on a 2-year-old foldable. It resists permanent deformation, which is just fancy speak for it stays flat when you open it, finally. But the specs get weirder. The leak confirms Touch ID is back. Yes, you heard me. No Face ID on the Fold. It's likely on the side power button because fitting Face ID sensors into a super thin foldable bezel is a nightmare. As for the cameras, we are looking at a 48 megapixel main shooter and an ultra-wide secondary. But here's the kicker. An 18 megapixel center stage squared selfie camera on both the inside and outside. And the brains, it's running the A20 Pro chip with 12 gigs of RAM across the board. So if you were worried about Apple Intelligence slowing this thing down, don't be. It's a beast. So what does this actually look like in your hand? If Apple is using liquid metal and a new titanium alloy for the body, this could be the first foldable that doesn't feel like a fragile prototype. You know that anxiety when you drop a naked phone? Multiply that by $2,000. But with these materials, Apple is clearly trying to make this thing durable enough for the average person who throws their phone in a bag with keys and loose change. Also, let's talk about that side-mounted Touch ID. For anyone living in a city where you are constantly tapping to pay on the tube or subway, Touch ID is arguably faster and more reliable than awkwardly holding a tablet-sized phone up to your face. It's a practical win, even if it feels like a step back tech-wise. And with the A20 Pro and that new C25G chip, your connection speeds in terrible coverage spots should actually be usable. It's the practical, boring stuff that actually makes a foldable livable, and it sounds like Apple nailed that part. Let's look at the competition. The Galaxy Z Fold series has had 7 generations to get this right, and they are great, but they still feel like, well, Samsung's. The Pixel Fold is lovely, but let's be honest, the modem is usually trash. Apple entering the ring with a customized liquid metal hinge and a chip that laps the Snapdragon in raw power is a problem for everyone else. The source here, Jeff Pugh, has a pretty solid track record with supply chain moves. He called the RAM upgrades and the camera to shifts on previous Pros. When he starts talking about specific materials like liquid metal and specific part numbers like the C25G chip, it means suppliers are moving money around. This isn't a wish list, it's a receipt. The mention of the center stage camera also aligns perfectly with how Apple is pushing video calls on iPad. They want this to be your portable office, not just a big TikTok machine. Here's my hot take. I think the lack of Face ID is actually a feature, not a bug. Hear me out. On a foldable, you are constantly opening and closing it, holding it at weird angles, or half folding it on a desk. Face ID struggles when you are off axis. A fingerprint scanner is instant every time. It tells me Apple prioritized "it just works" over "look how fancy our sensors are." And that is the Apple I missed. However, there is a weird detail about the iPhone 18 Pro in this same report that has me scratching my head. They are talking about moving the front camera to the top left corner like a retro Android punch hole. If that's true, it feels like they are deliberately making the Pro line look classic or retro to make the Fold look even more futuristic. It's a design psychology trick. They want you to look at your slab phone and feel like you're holding an antique, and it's going to work. But let's be real for a second. This is going to hurt your wallet. We are likely looking at a starting price of $2,400 to $2,500 in the US, in the UK, and Europe, with 20% VAT. You are looking at over 2,500 or 3,000 euros. That is used car territory. And that brings me to the biggest Western buyer anxiety: repair costs. If you crack that inner liquid metal screen, do you think a third-party shop can fix it? Absolutely not. You are going to be married to the genius bar. AppleCare Plus isn't just nice to have here, it's a mandatory tax. You have to factor in an extra $300 or £250 just for peace of mind, or you're walking around with a ticking financial time bomb. Plus carrier locking. If you buy this on an AT&T or Verizon installment plan to soften the blow, you are locked in for 3 years. That is a long time in tech years. So is the iPhone Fold the device that finally gets you to switch, or is the price tag just offensive? Personally, I am excited about the liquid metal hinge because durability has always been the deal breaker for me. If Apple solves the crease and the breakability, I'm in. But I want to know what you think. Would you trade Face ID for a side fingerprint scanner if it meant getting a bigger screen? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the hands-on when this thing finally drops, and check out my other video on why the iPhone 18 might be boring on purpose. I'm out. Catch you on the next one. Peace out.